Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Full Quota podcast. My name is Mpho and I've got Tim Delace with me to talk all things happening in South African cricket. Obviously, we'll talk about the Cricket World Cup, but we are a South African cricket podcast, and remember, you can let your friends know. Please do subscribe to our One World Sports Radio channel. We also have an audio podcast on Anchor, as well as Anchor Podcast, as well as Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So please do go check us out there. We also have a Patreon account if you want to just drop in some cash. Go check it out at Patreon forward slash 1WSR, One World SR, actually. So Tim, two big games in South African cricket this weekend. One was a final. The other one was a group stage match. The group stage match left us all perplexed, but we're going to talk about that. But let's just go through the CSA 20 final. The Titans winning the CSA T20 tournament this time, beating the Dolphins in Potchefstroom by 4 wickets. It was an interesting game because I think you saw that partnership between John Smuts and Keegan Peterson, and you kind of felt it was a 115-run partnership, and you kind of felt like, okay, well, this team is there, and a 160 on a pitch like that's been used. There's so much cricket over the month that okay, they're gonna actually. This is actually a really nice little thing for the Titans. Obviously, we know we've got David Brevis, they've got Donovan Ferreira, they have this lineup. And the Titans made a little bit tough going of it up front in their chase, but they managed to get through. I just felt they just kept on losing wickets at interesting times, and when they were 5 for 98, I just felt like, oh, one more wicket and they found themselves in trouble. But then Donovan Ferreira, he came in 40 of 25 with Dan Khalim 32 of 22 just to win the game from them. Tim, what did you make of that game, and what did you think of? What did you make of that game, actually? Yeah, and the standard of the final.
I thought that the final really it upped the levels in terms of the cricket that we saw over the last 3 weeks. I enjoyed it in general in the tournament, but the final, it genuinely was the top 2 teams playing against each other. It wasn't somebody sneaking in and winning a semi-final and going through to the final. It genuinely was the best batting team versus the best bowlers. The Dolphins, they must be thinking, how do we beat this Titan side? They just cannot beat this Titan side, no matter what they do. Like you, I thought they had enough runs on the board. I thought they'd got just about enough. Their strength was their bowling. I thought, particularly when Brevis goes out early, I thought, look, that's it. It might go down to the last couple of overs, but when it comes down to the death, Bartman and Bosch, they will see it out. They'll sneak the win. But this is why he was bought for the big bucks. This is why he went for the big bucks. It didn't matter what the Dolphins bowled. Wide, full tosses, Yorker length ball, back of a length, it all went out the ground. The bowlers did try different things, and I think at the end of the day, the best team won because the Titans were consistent from ball one. They were on the money in all 3 formats throughout the tournament. The Dolphins had a slow start. They got themselves into the tournament at the back end of the competition, but the Titans, they were just so strong. They were so strong, and they didn't even have to play Dinaga. Now, Dinaga's not a great T20 cricketer, but he is the national captain. They just ticked all the boxes. Spin bowlers were phenomenal throughout the tournament. Pankiso was probably the pick of them, but Brunt as well. Brunt, he didn't contribute as much as he would have.
He's a handy all-round option.
I think in this format, you probably could bat him at 6. You could say, bat you at 6, but you were going to be our bowling all-rounder. He's so effective with his left arm spin, and he was so effective in this tournament. The Dolphins, as you say, the Dolphins didn't do a lot wrong, but it was the one game where Bartman could not afford to have an off day.
Yeah.
Bartman had an off day. He missed. He didn't miss by much, but he missed his lines and legs a little bit. And if you do that against somebody like Ferreira, you are gonna get punished.
Yeah.
Um,
And T20 is
yeah.
one of those situations, especially in the final, where you want your big players to come through, or Bartman not taking a wicket is a glare. It's something glaring when you look at it to be like, okay, it's hard. It's hard to make inroads in this format. Everyone else pitched it, and that was great, but you needed him as well to come through, and especially against Donovan Ferreira, because you want your best bowler against their best batter. And I know everyone's going to come down and say Devil Brevis is their best batter, but no, he's not. It's Donovan Ferreira. He is their guy. He is that good. Yes, the guy scored 162. I get you, but Donovan Ferreira, and he comes in at 6. He's a power hitter, and yeah, look, I'm happy with the Titans. The Titans look buttoned up, and previous years they didn't look buttoned up. They had come of some weird selection issues. I think this year the selection issues kind of sorted themselves out, and they picked the best team. Because I remember watching them last year, and obviously they were playing like Grant Mokwena, and it looked really disjointed at the top. Obviously, Joel Brevis wasn't there, and then now this time you look at that and you're like, okay, they've invested in Javesh Pillay, who last year didn't have one of the better seasons, but he's still one of the top young batters they had. Obviously, they still kept with Tiernas de Brain, so they chose who of their older core they wanted in, and Tiernas de Brain, as always, the guy's still good enough to play for the Proteas. But obviously we've seen that road. We're done. We're not going back there. But as a domestic cricketer, he is very good. He is unbelievably good, and a really great guy for the changing room. And then obviously Neil Brunt, as you spoke of, Donovan Ferreira, the up and coming guy coming into the system, who had a great season last year, got the money for CSA to SA20, and now he's stepping into his own. And then obviously the Pangi shows. They did have a little bit of a Simon Harmer issue that bothered me a lot, but you need 2 spinners, and he was their second spinner, so like, what am I supposed to do? And Neil Brunt and Pangiso, both left-arm spinners, just kind of is like, unless if I need a ball 10 over the spin, Neil Brunt comes in. Outside of that, and look, the bowling, always had an issue. My with like Dan Khalim, in and out, not too sure what you are. Are you a batter who bowls? Are you a bowler who bats? But he came through when they needed him to. And they keep on having the faith in him to come through. Spanelo Makanya also didn't have a great season. But he came right, 13 off 9. Yeah, it was important. Every run is important. So for me, I felt like I knew what the Titans were, and they looked buttoned up, and they then didn't hurt themselves by selecting poorly.
Yeah. Important point that you make there is the Khalim issue. Ashwar Prince didn't know what to do with him down in Province. Mandla does. Mandla, you're right, he didn't have a fantastic season last season, but he trusted in him. He backed him. He said, I see this guy as an all-rounder, as the all-rounder in the side, particularly in the white ball formats, and he's repaid that confidence. Sometimes that's all it takes. I don't think they used him right at Province. They didn't. They didn't trust him. They didn't use him in the right places, and it's good to see that he is actually flourishing up there.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Now let's move on to the dramas. I'm laughing because I'm a sports person, so I'm busy currently watching, and you'll figure out what time we're recording. Busy currently watching the Europa League draw for the round of 16 in Europa League, the round of 32. So number 2 in Europa League groups and number 3 in the Champions League play each other in an eliminator. Barcelona got selected. Guess who got Barcelona? It's not Arsenal. It's not Arsenal.
No.
It's
I don't know.
United.
Awesome. Brilliant.
A moment. A little bit
That's
of everything.
brilliant.
Okay, cool. Now to the drama. To the drama. What happened yesterday? I woke up at 2 o'clock. We've spoken on this podcast about what the Proteas need to do to get through the group. You have to beat Netherlands. You have to beat Bangladesh. You have to beat Zimbabwe. Yes, we didn't get to beat Zimbabwe, but we didn't lose. We got that draw, and somehow Pakistan losing to Zimbabwe kind of gave us a little bit of a helping that we didn't actually need to beat Zimbabwe. But you still needed to beat the Netherlands. There was no turning back. It felt like a pseudo quarterfinal, but you can't call it that because you're the best team in the group by a country mile. Yes, maybe Pakistan showed you up in the game before, but we knew that you kind of have to lose the game to Pakistan, just kind of go through. And it's not the end of the world if you do lose the game in Pakistan. But then there was one thing that bothered me about this tournament was I don't understand why that game in Adelaide was being played at 2 a.m., which meant it was like 10 a.m. in Australia, but it was something else. And then so we woke up. We all woke up that morning, or if you didn't, you woke up at 5. Some of us woke up at 2 and then slept because we kind of realized that the drama was unfolding. And for me, Tim, first 3 overs of that match, or first 4 overs, 5 overs, however long it was, I knew that it was going down. That I don't want to use the C word, but they've earned it. That dreaded C word, that choke job was just about to happen. And I remember in the Pakistan game, things weren't going our way. Drop catches, slipping, people going through weird things. There was a catch that Adam Markham did, and he caught it. When he fell, ball pops out. That doesn't happen, you know. And I was like, okay, but you can bring it back. And in the back end of the innings, it kind of like things were coming back into our favor. The luck was starting to turn with Timber and the batting, and you're like, oh, okay, this is it. On Sunday, none of that happened. And I'm like, no, but you don't need luck to beat the Netherlands because you're better than them. Even if we did and I'm sorry to say this, maybe the Dutch fans will punish me. If we did a CSA T20 11 of the best players in this tournament, and we said go play the Netherlands, I wouldn't say we'd beat them all the time, but I'd say 50-50, five wins out of 10. So when you have the best players in your country at the World Cup, beating India the week before on the Sunday, and arriving at the Netherlands, and quite frankly, Mark Boucher said their energies look low. They were low. I don't know why, but they were low, and that's a coaching issue. So that's one thing. Mark Boucher, that's on you. But then let's go to the beginning, Tim. We arrive at Adelaide, we see the toss, we see Timber do the coin, whatever it is, and he chooses to bowl. I sat there going, that's a very weird call. Are we trying to let our I didn't understand the whole before I even saw the team composition, I was like, but why aren't we batting? It's a used pitch. And then on top of that, we moved over to the selection. Tristan Stubbs getting dropped. That's a little weird. Yes, he's slightly off form, and I know Han Clausen's on form, but he's the only person in that team that can strike at a better strike rate than David Miller. And then we look at the bowlers, and I remember I kept on saying, let's not get carried away with this fast bowling thing. Let's not want to replicate everything. And we did. We went into Adelaide with 4 bowlers like it was the SEG, like we're playing at Perth, and we dropped our wicket-taking spinner to play our economy rate spinner. We actually did pretty well in that game yesterday. I didn't have a problem with it. To the point where even in over 10, I was like, wait, if we're bowling Aiden Markham and he's doing quite well, we might as well bowl him 4 and let those other 4 guys figure out what they want to do. But there was a lot of errors in yesterday's game, Tim, that were they kind of compounded on each other. And to a certain extent, like for instance, the toss. You're going to be batting at the worst time for this pitch. The bowling, you picked one extra quick, and now they can't find their lines and lengths. Not because you picked the extra quick, because seemingly everyone just doesn't know how to bowl properly now in Adelaide because the pitch isn't what like Sydney or Perth, and that just compounds. Netherlands finding it easier to bat, and then on top of that, all the fielding issues that are happening because now all of a sudden at 10 a.m. our energies are low, and so it was all of that. And I sit here going, it's a missed opportunity with probably one of the best teams we've ever taken to a World Cup. But what went wrong? What was going on, Tim? Like, what happened?
It started not in this game. Not to start this game. It started in the last 5 overs of Pakistan's innings, where Pakistan made 65 in those last 5 overs. Putting aside the crop catches, putting aside the misfield from Shamsi, putting aside the misfield from Markram, the bowling in those last 5 overs was dreadful. It was dreadful. And if you add all those things I've just said put aside, you put through a team that's cracked under pressure. A team that's cracked under pressure, and you start
the pressure.
The pressure was not really there but they cracked under it. There was a couple of 4s. That's what I'm getting to. They cracked under the pressure that they started to feel as if they had to win. They started to feel as if they had to win the Pakistan game. They started to feel, wait, we actually are one of the favourites here. We started to feel the heat of the situation, the heat of the moment. And they cracked. And that's where the C word comes in. I'm sorry, the last 2 games, you can legitimately say the C word can be used. If you want to write your
Not
piece,
against Pakistan, surely.
in those last 5 overs, where it mattered, yes. Not for the opening 15. Opening 15, nothing went wrong, everything was... But then it started to realise, okay, well, we're looking at the sort of total, look at the board, we can sort of get to that sort of total, that's okay. We'll take the foot off a little bit, we'll relax a little bit. That's when the pressure started to create. And then, once Pakistan had got too much on the board, subconsciously South Africa's going, okay, we can put this aside, don't worry about it. We've got the Netherlands, we'll beat them. We're better than them. Then they come to the Netherlands, and they don't turn up. I don't understand why that happened. I don't understand why they didn't turn up for Netherlands in any way, shape or form. From the moment that toss was won, 90% of the decisions that were made were wrong. The toss was wrong. Not playing shams. Yeah, you want to get it?
Can we go into those decisions? Let's go to the decisions one by one. First big decision, the toss. Do you have any explanation as to why we would bowl first?
No, because if you bat first, with arguably the best top 6 in the world, you know, maybe second with maybe India, I suppose, but you know, a quality top 6. You put 200 on the board, you can't lose.
Even
you
if
put
it
200
was
on the board, you cannot lose that game if you make 180 plus.
Even if it was that 158 that the Netherlands put, you'd still back the bowlers.
If the opposition makes, like Netherlands do, if they make 150, there's always that doubt. There's always that doubt that creeps in. What if we lose Quinton and Riley again early? What happens? Timber's had a poor tournament. Then it starts to get into the... You make this run at the beginning. You take that out. You say, all we have to do is get Craig died out.
But don't they have that on the other side? Because that's my thinking. My thinking is that they weren't confident in their batting in order for them to be able to do this. So they were like, actually, let's let the Netherlands make the mistakes, and then we will piggyback off of that and win the game by them making mistakes instead of us making plays. And I think for me, that was the...
That's where the choking comes in. It's going, we don't have the confidence, lack of confidence in our own ability to put the foot on the pedal and choke them and say, this is our game, we're going to win. They took the pressure off. They said, no, we don't want the pressure. We want to take the pressure off.
But then,
And
Tim,
then
what do you? So here's the thing. Obviously, it's not Timber's decision, and everyone's blaming Timber for saying we want to bowl first. Unless if
it's
Timber went against
everybody.
what the team did,
It's
it was
everybody
Timber
at the
and Mark
top.
and the
Everybody.
leadership, the senior leadership,
Yeah.
right? And for me, my thing was what even look is the other thing with Pakistan, right? At the SCG was 80% of the teams that played at the SCG in a T20 won the game batting first. Even at Adelaide, same stat, bat first. It was screaming bat first. There was no rain about, there was nothing. And we still went and batted first. And so to me, in my logical brain, it was y'all were scared. But then my question was, where were they scared? How did they become scared? Was it the Pakistan game? Because in that case, because we played India on the Sunday, we beat India. Nothing changed up until Pakistan. Pakistan game was even rain affected. So you can't even obviously judge because you can be like, I know it was Duckworth Lewis. If there was, because I sincerely thought if it did not rain, we would have gotten to Pakistan's territory. We just didn't
I
get
think.
a shortened game.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I agree. I think that there's a chance. There was a chance.
Yes.
Those two at the crease. There was a chance.
Yeah. But then where did they lose the confidence along the way between Pakistan and now? Because Tembo was finding his way back into form. Quinny had scored some runs in this tournament. Riley had scored 100 in this tournament. Aiden had some handy knocks along the way, and he was like the glue that kind of closed out whatever gaps were there, even in the game. David, we know David Miller was unavailable, I think, but we know what David Miller can do. He's the highest runs. He's got the highest average in this tournament for the Proteas. We know the ability that Tristan Stubbs has. We know that Riley that Heinrich's on form, and we know that Reese is on form. Where did we lose it? Because and that maybe that's the question that we're going to have to ask when they come to South Africa on Wednesday. Is in hindsight, were you guys actually scared to actually bat first? Because last year I would have said, yeah, fine, we understand what this team is. This team can't bat, so they lead with their bowlers in any conditions. We get that. Now times have changed, but we still kind of went back to the same spot. And it does go back to your choking thing. And for me, that's what it was. But let's move to the second one, the selection. Where did they go wrong?
You rightly point out that Maharaj had a good game with the ball. That you cannot say he didn't. But not playing your strike bowler, your wicket-taking bowler, in the spinning department.
Bowler in the world in T20s.
If you said to Dowd, who was the big hitter, if you said to them, which would you fear, Maharaj or Shamsi? I am 100% convinced he'll say, I don't want to play Shamsi. I know what Maharaj is doing. I can work with that. I can get underneath him. And even if I don't, I probably won't get out. I don't know what Shamsi's going to do. Spin both ways, difference in variations in pace. He's very guiley sort of spinner. I am 100% convinced that he would not want to play against Shamsi. And that would be the case for most of the T20 batters around the world. There is a reason why he is number 3 in the world. You and I have said, don't play him against India. That made sense. But not playing him in the rest of the tournament does not. It does not make sense.
So here's my thing. My thing is never, my argument and throughout this tournament, it's never between Kesh and Shamsi. It's between Shamsi and the quicks. You had to drop one of the quicks. Obviously, the country would have vilified you if you had dropped Kagiso Rabada, even though Kagiso's had one of the worst tournaments I think he's ever had.
Twitter will have vilified me once I made that point. I know what it's like.
Yeah. and so then the question is between Lungi and Anuk Nokia. You had to drop one of them. You had to make the tough decision to drop one of them to bring in Shamsi. And the thing about Australia, just like South Africa, is like if I'm playing in Durban, I'm playing 2 spinners. If I'm playing in Pretoria and Johannesburg, I'm not playing 2 spinners. So we're playing in Adelaide. it looked dry. Like when you saw them walk out onto the field for the anthems, I was like, these guys are playing in a haze. It didn't look like the rain that we've seen throughout the tournament. It looked like it was the driest part of Australia we have ever seen. Like they're playing in the desert, in that little no man's land between Perth and the other cities on the in the east. And so my question was, okay, why are we going with an extra bowler? Because spin's going to work, and it did. And then they threw the ball to Aiden Markham, and I was like, so then Aiden must bowl 4. That's the other decision. Why didn't Aiden bowl 4 overs? Because to me, I get the understanding you've gone with 4 quicks. I get it, but it's not working. You saw it with Kagiso's first over of 17. You saw it with Lungi's over. You saw it with Parnell getting short balls weren't even giving you the same thing. They were just sitting up. So I'm sitting there going, you see it. So then take 1 over from all your 4 bowlers and give them all to Markram. And let Keshav and Markram try and bowl you back into this game. And yes, they're not scary. They're not going to scare them. But they'll give you, because these guys are going to try and slug them out the ground. And you're going to get joy from there. And the Aiden got the wicket. Keshav got wickets. So that was the other decision for me. I was like, okay, guys, I understand. We went in with what we went in. I get it. But then the other thing for me with all of this was the lines and lengths, Tim. Why were we bowling Perth and Sydney lengths? I don't know. I was baffled to find out that these guys were still trying to go short, and they got punished for it. And then when they went full to correct it, they were overcorrecting. So then my question was, did you guys even have a strategy meeting? To me, Tim, it felt like these guys were given a rest weekend or rest couple of days and were told to come back to the hotel on Saturday at 12 in the afternoon. There was no team meeting even then. And when they came back into the hotel, the team list was put on the main team board, probably on the corridor there, to be like, you're playing. And guys woke up and they just were playing. That's how what it looked like. It looked like nobody actually communicated anything, And it was interesting because the person who actually bowled well yesterday was Anand Nokia. He hit his lines very well. So it kind of also tells me that there was a team meeting. Somebody listened, and the others necessarily didn't. But that's how it looked like. And all of these things just lead to not even the team's ability. It's that extra level above the team where it's coach, captain, selectors, and that staff. It's a lack of preparation.
The other thing I didn't understand is they were 130 for 4, I think. 130 for 4 with 2 overs to go. I think they scored 30 in those last...
no, they were 115 and they scored 31 or something. Or 120 and he scored 31 in the last.
That's right, 120, that's right. So then you go to Rabada for your penultimate over. He's had a bad day. You've got Ackerman on strike. Ackerman is just sort of getting in, sort of run a ball, sort of score at the moment. You don't have a mid-on, a deep mid-on, a deep mid-off, or a third man. So there's no deep mid-on, no deep mid-off, no third man. You've got 3 on the leg side. In front of square, behind square, and square leg. 3 for the hook shot. His 6 balls were all full, and there wasn't a single short ball in those 6 balls.
Yeah.
They either went over Midoff's head, or they went over third man for 6.
Yeah. And
please tell me what that was. It makes no sense to me at all. Make no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, and that's my and like I don't like it was just to a certain extent, Tim, it was a mess. It was completely a mess. And so now here's the thing, right? The moment Netherlands went big and started going big, but you have them 113 and you're like, okay, I need to go to my strike bowler. This is the moment my strike bowler breaks the game for me. He did not. And we need to have a conversation about that. We need to have a conversation about Kagiso Rabada and his inability to be able to break the game for this team open. I love Kagiso a lot, but I honestly do think that maybe we did not make and everyone was talking about no, drop the captain. Drop guys, there were other people in this team that needed to be, and I know it's hard, like and for me that's the problem about cricket. And to a certain extent sport. You will give your better players longer rope to hang themselves. And when you look back, you're like, I actually should have dropped them a lot earlier. Kagiso in the Pakistan game and the India game wasn't great. Even in the Zimbabwe game, it wasn't great. And there came a time where maybe it was for us to hide him in the middle overs. Because I remember in Pakistan, we didn't even know where to hide him. We couldn't hide him. Every time he came on, 16 runs, 12 runs. It was just like, we're like, oh, okay, we're just leaking boundaries off this oak. And you're like, and with Kagiso, I get it. You just need one good ball. And some balls were really great, and he got cut. Like there was one ball that was a Yorker length in the second over of the match, Yorker length outside the off stump, and I'm assuming it's Myberg. It's literally picked that up like it was a half volley and went over Point's head. And I was like, okay, that was good, but unlucky. And to a certain extent, that was it. And so for me, that's what it was. And when you're playing minnows like that, you need to make plays. And that game, our bowlers didn't make plays. But 158 is respectable. It's a gettable target with a batting lineup that you have. Let's go to the other side of the ball. My word. I don't even know where to start. But Quinny and Temba, they started off quite well, okay-ish, little tentative for my liking, but I kind of got that when you're playing teams like Netherlands and stuff, like they don't, outside of Brandon Glover, they don't have like express pace. So it's unlike you're facing Lungi, KG, and Anna, 130s all the time. You're gonna get guys who are gonna be giving you tricks and slow balls and everything else. And I think South Africa just missed the trick there. And it felt all mental to me because I was like, you guys are trying a little bit too much and you put yourselves in a hole. And because I was like, okay, Temba, yes. Like all the runner balls, the runner ball 20, Temba, the runner ball 12, Quinton. And you're like, you just never got to that extra level because somehow, somewhere, something just went wrong. And it was either mostly their fault, but it was just like good bowling from the Netherlands who stuck it into South Africa. But, even on the back end when you had Markram and Miller and them getting a little carried away at times and losing their wickets and stuff like that. But to me, it was like we needed somebody to just anchor that innings, and nobody was willing to go back to the Mark Boucher way of doing things of last year of we need to have one guy to anchor this innings to take us to the end. Nobody could do that for us. And we just needed one top 6 batter to go top 5 batter to go up until over 15, reassess and do that. And to a certain extent, that was lost. It was, okay, guys, even in the Pakistan game is slightly different. But essentially, when you play teams like this, you kind of, and it looks bad. Keep yourself in the game. And that's what Mark Boucher essentially wanted last year when we were playing T20 cricket, was to try to give ourselves every chance of being in the game, because you just never know what those final 5 overs are going to end up. And you've seen with the way South Africa bowled that anything could happen. So I just was like, okay, we're just being rigid now. We're still trying to play the type of cricket we're playing in India, where just everyone goes out and blasts, because that's what T20 cricket's become now. It's like, let's just blast, screw the whole anchor. We're just going, and we're just everyone just hit. We'll figure out what we get at the end, and that was that day. That was yesterday, and it doesn't work. And it doesn't mean that the anchor works too. It just was that for yesterday's game, you just needed somebody to sit, give you a runnable 50 or a runnable 40. I just need someone to give me a runnable 40 just to rotate the strike, get to the other end, and even if we're 90 even if we're a runnable 90 at over 15, I back those guys to get the 60 in the 30 balls if you had the Stubbs or whatever in the hat. And I kind of felt like we were just slightly reckless. Even in Pakistan, I felt we were very reckless with our wickets and our stroke making. And to a certain extent, it also kind of feeds into the whole Temba criticism, because everyone's like, no, strike rate, this strike rate, that strike rate, this strike rate, that. But sometimes you just want to win a game, do everything you need to do to win a game, and sometimes that's just let's just go to over 15 and reassess. And there was none of that. It was just, you know what, I'm going down in a blaze of glory. How did you see
Yeah,
it?
yeah. Look, a lot of people have been saying this, and there certainly is an element of truth. The Miller wicket. The Miller wicket was the turning point. The magnificent catch from Roelof van der Merwe. 112 for 4, needing 9.5 for an over. With Klaassen and Miller together. That's doable. That's very, very doable. With one of them doing what you asked, just saying, let's do 7.5, let's get there, and we can do 11s for the last 3 overs. We can do that. We can work with that. That was a turning point. But you're right. They definitely seem to be forcing the issue. Everybody seemed to be forcing the issue right from the start. Why was Quinton running down the wicket? Why? Why are you running down the wicket like that? It's unnecessary. It's just a straight ball outside the off stump. You don't need to be running down the wicket. If you stood in your crease, you probably hit that for 4.
Yeah,
So,
and it's not as though we were chasing 200. And it felt like
exactly.
we were chasing 200 because I was like, what's in your pants? Do you have like ants in your pants that are forcing you to come down and try and what? Because that's what you do when you're trying to, when bowlers have you bogged down and you're trying to just change the angle. And to a certain extent, I do think maybe Quinny saw that and was like, I don't like that angle. I'm going to hit that fielder. So he did try to come down, but it's a risk and reward type of thing and it falls. And we didn't need risks at the top. You know, the great thing but the thing about T20 that I think the strike rate merchants forget is that if you lose 3 wickets in the power play, chances are you're losing that game. And so that's essentially one of the things where but that's the risk and reward element of it. If you want to take the risk, you're going to lose the wickets. And we did. And there was no need to because it was a middle of the road target. Remember last year at the World Cup, what did we say? Give us 150. That's what we want. We want 150. There was our 150.
In Australia, on wickets that are not going to turn. I mean, what more could you ask?
And we did the 150. We did the 150 with anchors. With Rassie, nobody liked Rassie in the team. Rassie was an anchor. Timber was the anchor too, and we made it. And Aiden was coming into his own in T20 cricket. Like I'm just so shocked that it feels like this team doesn't learn. And this goes to my final point about the Boucher era, because Mark Boucher's out now. And we're going to talk about the overhauls. But the one thing for me is this team, throughout in ODI cricket and T20 cricket, throughout Mark Boucher's tenure, have always had games like this, where he and Mark Boucher said they didn't have energy. Well, that's true. But it's just baffling. It's just like bad decision after bad decision.
It's a World Cup.
Where they play.
Why would you have motivation for a World Cup?
Well, he says when they woke up they didn't have motivation. Do you know what? You know, like I don't. It's a coach and a coach's and captain's job to do it. If you can't motivate your players, you must leave. That for me is number one thing. But every like the Bangladesh ODI, remember we lost Bangladesh. We got whitewashed by Bangladesh in an ODI series. Obviously we're playing the Netherlands now, but we did lose to Ireland back then. We also lost some games in and along the way, some embarrassing games as well going into this World Cup. So for me, I'm sitting there going, this is a pattern. This happens. We lose games we're supposed to be winning because we don't take care of the simple things. We don't have the energy to play games because our players couldn't be bothered. We're not willing to have the hard decisions. And to a certain extent, Temba was the hard conversation, Kagiso was the hard conversation, Dropping a bowler was a hard conversation going into a tournament after we've gone past the whole Temba and Reza thing throughout the tournament. But I remember I kept on saying, I'm going into this tournament, 2 spinners, regardless of what you need to find a way to drop your third seamer. And they did not want to have that conversation. And now look at where they are. And so it's for me, that's a mark of Mark's tenure. It was great. He had about 50% win ratio across all 3 formats, but the losses were horrible. The losses were embarrassing. The losses were just unbelievable. Like, for instance, Australia won. Remember last year at Australia? He went to the press conference and said, we didn't know what target to set. How the hell do you tell me that? Do you not prepare? Do you not even have I could go on Google and tell you what the average was for that stadium. And be like, well, this is what the number is. And we had games there from the qualifiers. So like, well, teams are averaging this batting first, teams are averaging this batting second. Isn't that what we do when we research games? So like, that's like 101. That's like entry level. So for me, that's Mark Boucher's tenure. And it came out in the wrong time. I thought we'd get this in a final or in a semi-final, where it just falls apart because we stuck to our guns with the bowlers. The pitch wasn't like that in Adelaide. And then we just got torn apart. But we created our own demise. Where do we go from here, Tim? What everyone's asking for wholesale changes. Everyone's asking for, obviously Mark's leaving, but everyone wants Timber out. Where do we go from here?
All right. For me, the solution is simple, but getting to that solution is not simple. If you get my drift. So, when Otis was sacked, I said at the time, it's not all going to be roses. And 3 years later, look at us. Can you honestly say we're better? It's a stretch. Maybe in Test cricket we are slightly better, but everything else, I think it's a stretch.
England just showed us where we are.
Exactly. So I think it's a stretch that we are better. I think that's a stretch. So as I said after Otis, it's not going to be all roses. He is not the only problem. Same with Boucher. Boucher is resigning. Let's say for argument's sake, Malabongwe gets the full-time job. I would have no problem with him getting it. The guy's got the interim job at the moment. No problem with that. But if you give him that job without the backing, what's the point? What is the point? Otis Gibson was not given the full backing. Mark Boucher was given more backing, but he was not given, in my opinion, a good enough backroom staff. In my opinion.
But didn't he select his backroom staff?
As I said, better. He had better backing than Otis did. I said that. But I think he made mistakes, and also the fact that we didn't have a full-time batting coach for large parts of his reign. We did at the end, but cricket South Africa, surely.
No, it was Mark's.
For lack of money. Did Mark say
the reason why we didn't have a batting coach for lack of money?
Yeah.
Really?
That's the way I understand it.
No,
it cannot be. It cannot be because Mark said we. Well, if Mark said we don't
wanted to take care of that role.
If he said that, then I'll take back that statement. That's fine.
No,
that's
I don't know.
Incredibly...
But I was under the impression, and I could be wrong, was that he wanted to do that role himself.
Well,
even
if he said that, then that's on him.
Even with the video analyst, the rumors of him saying that no, he didn't want the video analyst filling the players with whatever it is in their heads.
Yes. He wanted that judge, the video analyst. He wanted somebody with a bit more of a playing background. I remember that being the case. You could make an argument that was probably not the smartest move. Not having a mental coach, not having a full-time mental coach, a Paddy Upton within the side that was going into transition when he arrived is just criminal. Sorry, it's criminal.
Tim, here's my thing. Here's my
criminal.
thing. Here's my thing. His friend was director of cricket for a large part of his tenure. His friend only stopped being director of cricket at the beginning of the year. His friend could have
Yeah,
organized him this, all of this, batting coach and everything. There's no such thing that there wasn't money because
but
Graham was busy there doing his things.
it is well known that, for example, Otis couldn't get the overseas guys he wanted,
Yes,
and
yes, that we know.
Cricket South Africa is in a financial. It cannot get an England backroom staff. It can't. It's never going to have 16, 17 people. It just cannot get that situation. But not having those players for a range of reasons, is criminal. Not having a full-time batting coach and mental coach is criminal. It is criminal. So whoever it is, he has to get a better setup there. I don't think the setup at the moment, bowling coach aside, I don't think it's good enough. The people that have there at the moment, I don't think they're good enough. They're too inconsistent in the fielding, and they're wildly inconsistent in the batting. I think Justin Summons is a nice guy. I don't think Justin Summons should be the batting coach for going. And a new coach brings in his new people, whoever they are. So going forward, it's going to be a new coach. I would go in with a new T20 captain. I would. I would say to Timber, you are our ODI captain, and you are incumbent middle order batsman in the test format. You are secure in those two formats. So I would make sure that there's no ambiguity in that factor. We're going in a separate direction, and I wouldn't have Timber in my T20 squads going forward, unless he really changes things. I think you can bring in somebody like Yanam Malan in this,
Again, we're going back
or Donovan Ferreira, or Devil Brevis. They are guys that are knocking down that door who are better placed to be playing this form of cricket than Temper Bavuma. That's not a slight on him. That's just, I think we will be in a better. Reza Hendricks, we will be in a better position going in that direction. So yeah, that's my 5 cents.
I think for me, where we go from here is I actually want us to split the limited overs and test coaching roles. So I have two. I want to see what Enoch's brand of cricket was that he wanted to play, because I think I liked it and I thought it was quite successful. And I want Enoch to pick somebody who can own the role they're on by themselves, but has a similar philosophy to him in terms of being aggressive, being attacking, being playing cricket that way, and also being a little bit more analytically based in terms of the way we do our limited overs cricket. So for me, that's where we go. The captaincy issue hamstrings us a lot, largely because of who it is. But here's my thing. I don't know who I'm going to pick as captain if I drop Timber. I'm not giving it to Aiden Markham. I've seen Aiden Markham under pressure. I've seen him try to do this captaincy thing. And maybe he was too young then. Again, when he was captaining against India. But it still left a very sour taste in my mouth. I don't want Keshav Maharaj in my T20 11 going forward. So I can't make him my captain. Everyone's going to be ageist and say David Miller. I'd still give it to David Miller, 32 years old. In the next 4 years, couple of World Cup cycles, probably he takes the captaincy and runs with it. So I think maybe it's David Miller. But obviously that's dependent on the new coach and the new coach and what setup he wants to bring in. But it kind of gives us, the great thing is that Mark's now gone, so you don't have to fire him. He's out. So you need to bring in someone new. If it's Mali, then great. If someone else, then also great. But so for me, that's where I'm at. I think I don't need you to overhaul the squad. I just need you to. I know the captain will step down. I think it's not an issue. I think whoever the new coach is probably going to have a conversation with Timber, and Timber's going to be like, I can't do this. Not that he can't play T20, it's just this has probably been the toughest month in his entire life, largely because of people on social media, and what they've said. Yeah, so for me, that's where we are. I don't think the squad needs an overhaul. I do think Ahiso at a national level also needs to. We have to have a conversation about that in T20. Do we want him to play this format? Are there any bowlers that are better than him? And I think that's the question. And also, and talking about styles, this thing of going pacer heavy and leaning on pace needs to stop. We've been doing it for 30 years. It doesn't work. Even in South Africa, it does not work. So go in with two spinners, pick your spinners, go look for spinners. Even if you want guys to bat, Mutusami, whoever it is, go and figure out who the best spinner is for what you need to do in South Africa. Might not be Keshav, but I'll tell you it will be Shamsi. And you do not drop Shams. Even if he's going through a rough patch, you could do it obviously in the little bilaterals that you do, but you can do that. But then I also want to coach with a plan. I want a plan to say, not the next World Cup, but the World Cup after that. This is what we're trying to do. And then you put in these things into place. You blood the youngsters. You bring in the Brevises. You bring in these under-19s who are coming. You bring in the Donovan Ferreiras. And they may not play every game, but they need to be in the setup. You need to have a core of like 25 players that you rely on to go and travel the world and play cricket with. You know, may not pick all the 25, but you pick 16 here and there to go and travel the world. So for me, that's what you need to do. And everybody needs to know the philosophy. Then you also need to go to the domestic coaches and tell them the brand of cricket you want to play and tell them that you want to replicate this brand of cricket. And I don't care if you're living in Durban. I don't care if you're in the Western Cape. I don't care where you are. But if you're in South Africa and you're playing domestic cricket, coaching domestic cricket in South Africa, this is what we want. Pass it on to all the players in the system, and then let's see who comes out. SA20 is going to help, but SA20 is not going to help with driving the thing forward. Your plan is CSA forward because they're going to play whatever brand of cricket they want to play. Your job then is to figure out which players fit the system. So for me, that's where I'm thinking going forward. And so, I think Timber's days as T20 internationals in cricket is over. And also a selection panel, the selectors might also be moved a little bit. But I think it's been a tough period. It's been a tough 3 years. And I think South African cricket's back to the same place. Because remember, this drama happened after the 2019 World Cup. We're back to we're pretty much where we were.
Which is why I said there wasn't a lot of change.
Yeah, you could say the test team is a little bit better, but I think that was Mark's calling card. I think he was really great coaching test match cricket. I think the embarrassments are few and far between. But that's what it was. One thing I wanted to do to him quickly was to go through who like each of the team, the guys who played, all their stats, and then see what's what. So I'll put up the batting stats and then just let you just have a crack at it and let's also look. The batting stats at this World Cup, David Miller has the highest average at the top. David Miller was not out twice, guys. And he scored 78 runs, so his average is to 78. So, yeah, live with that. Riley was 141. He played 5 matches. He batted 4 times. And he scored 101 and 41 in the rest. That's something we need to consider. But the strike rate was good for the strike rate merchants, and that was good. Quinton de Kock, 124, high score 63, scored 31, average of 31, strike rate of 161. Can't fault him there, just some brain dead moments. Aiden Markram, average of 24, 99 runs, high score 52, strike rate 125. That's a question mark. But you're probably going to give him another run. Heinrich Klaassen, strike rate of 133, only played 2 games, 36, with an average of 18. Then you had Temba Bavuma, 70 runs in 5 innings, high score of 36, an average of 17, which is the lowest of the top 6. Okay, not the lowest because Tristan Stubbs didn't do much. Strike rate of 112. Yeah, he struggled. But I think in the last two games, his strike rate was a lot higher than that. But what happened in the beginning of the tournament cannot be undone. And then obviously Maharaj is there. Tristan Stubbs, 31 runs at an average of 10, a strike rate of 100. That was my biggest worry. That is my biggest issue and with him. But Tim, anything that you want to say about the batters and their stats throughout the tournament?
No, because I don't know if we really discussed this. This is not where we lost this tournament. Everybody contributed. Yes, outside of Quinton and Miller, you would have wanted the other guys to contribute on a more consistent basis, but that's the nature of T20 cricket. So Riley is nothing or 100. Now, that is the nature of this format. The fact that everybody contributed in at least one game pretty much tells you that, they were all in pretty much good form. They all contributed. If they had contributed a little bit more consistently, maybe we would have won against Pakistan.
Had they backed themselves against the Netherlands
Yeah.
to bat first. Because I think this team's mentality, batting first, has that whole anchorish mentality. Because then they'll be like, 150, okay, no, we'll take it. And then the bowlers get fired up because it's 150. But, there's something here. Even with Timber stats, even with Markham stats, to be like, actually, things were trending in a nice place. Tristan was our problem now, but we were okay. And obviously, the sad part about it was that Visa Hendricks did not get a game.
Yeah.
Bowling. Anuch Nokia, 11 wickets, economy of 5.37, strike rate of 9.5, average of 8.4. He was sensational. He was unbelievable. He made me take all the words back because I was like, I'm dropping this dude, but this was his World Cup. It was truly his World Cup.
He could say, he should actually write a letter to the ICC saying, thank you for keeping the boundaries big. That's what I think. That's what I think.
Okay.
But seriously, he was excellent.
Yeah.
He was excellent.
The next best was Lungi Ngiti, 7 wickets, strike rate of 11, but his economy was 8.92. And that was kind of Lungi's problem. He's bleeding too many wickets. Wayne came through with 5 wickets. He bowled really well. I think we kind of solved the all-round conundrum. I just think he just batted one high. One spot.
Yes. Yes, agreed.
But he needs to work his batting because if we're going to be persisting with Kagiso, that's going to be an issue. And that's Kagiso, 2 wickets in 5 matches, 9.43 economy rate, strike rate of 48, which is a problem. And then you obviously look at Shamsi. See, here's the thing, right? Shamsi played 2 games, 4 wickets, economy of 7, strike rate of 12. Maharaj, 4 wickets, 3 wickets, strike rate of 24, 7.41. I know the question is not. I know the Pakistan game we split. We switched the spinners, right?
Yeah.
But even then, there's still a case for Shamsi over Maharaj, and there's a case for Shamsi over Rabada, or even Ngiti at this point in time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
And it's the brain. It's decision making. And for me, if somebody had looked at this and said, Mark, have a look at this and digest what bowling attack do we bring out?
Yeah.
If you take out Aiden Markham. And that's
you asking me? Yeah.
No, I'm just saying. It's just like if you took some random person and said, pick our 11, and they do not know South Africa from a bar of soap.
Yeah.
And so, Tim, final words. I'm disappointed. That's all I'm going to say.
I'm just going to go back on those bowling stats. Obviously, some of this has got to do with the rain, but this is just gives you an idea. So against Zimbabwe, South Africa conceded 60 in the last 5 overs. They had them 19 for 4, but they conceded 60. This is Zimbabwe. Pakistan, they conceded 65 in the last 5 overs. That's Pakistan. Against the Netherlands, they conceded 45 in the last 4 overs. That's where we lost it. That's where we lost it. We lost it in the last 5 overs, death bowling. We have been saying for months on this podcast, death bowling has to improve. And didn't improve. It's because they cost us the World Cup. Not the batting, it's death bowling.
Yeah, Tim, you hit the nail on the head there. And yeah, we'll be back this week, everybody. That's the end of our show. We'll be back this week with many more conversations and things around this, or even the CSA T20. But yeah, Proteas come back on Wednesday. It's going to be a very tough time and a tough thing for them to take over. And yeah, there might be more conversations and discussions happening, so please do look out for that. It's a really sad way to end the podcast, Tim, but yeah,